Hello. Welcome to Connected Conversations, and I am happy to be here tonight. And with us this evening is none other than Brittanie Dabney. So I'm happy to have her as a guest to talk about ecotoxicological studies or aquatic toxicology. She is currently doing a PhD at Wayne State University and at the Department of Biological Sciences, and an NSF research traineeship and transformative research in urban sustainability and training, and an NIH initiative for maximizing student development fellow. And you have a focus on that aquatic ecotoxicological research and water sustainability. Thank you, Brittany, for being here and talking to us about that today. Appreciate it. Anything else you want to add about who you are and what you do?
um, so it's aquatic eco toxicology. And yeah, so I study contaminants in aquatic systems and how that might influence the animals that live in the water, but also the fate and transport of those contaminants within the system. So
That is awesome. And so we were just laughing because I've been having a heck of a time trying to remember to and trying to practice saying ecotoxicological. You could say that, 3 times really fast. That's pretty good. And all I can think about were my own students that have trouble with science as a language, and which is good for me as a teacher to struggle, because then I can relate to them and their struggles with science. Because let's be honest, sometimes it's hard to say certain words, and especially as you're going through a PhD, Brittany, I'm sure you've come across some terminology where you don't even know what it means, and you're just like, man, that is hard to say.
yes, there's a lot of big words that I had to learn, like just coming in, and like I feel like so behind so many of my other peers, but um in the end there's always like a simpler word for everything. The big words are just to make you sound smart.
Sometimes I get that feeling that that is the case. Um, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't try or it's not worthwhile. Uh,
Yes, you should definitely try.
right, because I don't want anyone to leave listening to you talk and think that, oh, I can't do this. We want to empower people here. Um, what are some, and I'm curious, what are some skills that you think you had to refine, and then some things you kind of went into your PhD already having a good grasp of that enabled you to succeed so far?
So so I have a bachelor's where I did undergraduate research. So I was able to get research experience very early on. So, and I have two master's degrees. So coming into a PhD, I guess the skills that I already had was just the basic like research skills, design skills, and but during my PhD, just picking up how to work better in groups, because of my program is mainly just working in collaborative groups. So working with people in the social sciences as well as engineering and other fields. So really, I guess just bringing my experience from doing just learning research design as well as some of the field techniques, and having those skills and bringing them to the group during my PhD is useful.
I guess having two masters would better prepare you
Yeah.
versus just you know having one. And I want to say, you were talking about that collaborative group experience being beneficial. One of the things, I teach eighth grade in high school, that we're often told that we need to focus on, and I tend to agree with, is that collaborative piece where students working in groups. But unfortunately, it really sucks especially in eighth grade. I don't know if you remember eighth grade, right? But you don't really like anything about yourself, let alone other people. So I wonder, at what point, we, I struggle with group work. I know it's important, right? You verified for me that it's a worthwhile doing, right? And getting
Mhm.
experience with, and having students work in the groups, but it can be hard because it always seems that one person will do 90% of the work. Um,
Yes.
do you want to comment on that at all? I mean, do you have experiences even in like high school that you could relate to, or something you might want to, mention about that to try to encourage me as a teacher?
So I think it's very different working in groups in a class setting, like for a grade versus like on a research project where everybody's
Hmm.
invested in the project, everybody thought of the project or wrote a grant together. So I find like working in the class setting in a group to be very difficult because there's always, I'm usually the person that ends up doing most of the work. So that's like very annoying because it's like you're contributing to somebody else's grade and like it's not necessarily equal effort, but it's so important to get that experience and sort of learn different personalities and how to deal with those situations because those are real world situations, like working in a classroom setting in a group setting with your peers. You're gonna have to deal with those people in the real world. So it's annoying at times, but useful. Good experience.
Okay. That kind of helps a little bit. Thank you.
Yeah.
And it does make sense, right? It all goes down to if you bought into it. And I think it helps then to have, I always try to have students have choice, right? And so if you give them choice and it becomes their project, then they might be more likely to um, commit to working with others to reach that end goal with that project versus just something for a grade, and that's the sole purpose of doing it, which is
Yeah.
not the best way.
Well, even in classroom settings where it's been the students been able to create the project themselves, I found that that has been a better experience than the teacher giving you the assignment or the particular
Hmm.
group project. So
Hmm.
that critical thinking that goes into formulating a project to begin with is very important as well.
Now, I know from experience that research and reading your bio, you go into looking at mayfly nymphs and things like that, EPT indexes and things like that. I'm sure you're familiar with the benthic invertebrates, that whole 9 yards. Were you always into like bugs and going into ponds and rivers and looking at them, or was that something that kind of developed over time and you're at one point you're like, this is really cool?
So as a kid, I've always been interested in small things. So invertebrates are small. So when I go to the beach, just looking at snails and, um, like worms and stuff, like I was really into that. I don't know why. I was never into actual fish, like the large animals in ponds and streams, but always the insects and the mollusk and things like that. So yeah, I've always been interested since a kid.
That is awesome. I take kids out because we're happen to have like a pond and a stream on near our campus. Technically, it's not on campus, but it's like right next door to it. There are kids that won't even leave the school. They're like, I'm not going outside. I'm like, what do you mean you're not going outside? There are bugs. Like, what? We're not even at the stream yet. And so, but of course, there are those kids that are, that were like you probably, and you're like, let's go. I want to start
Trying
running.
to
You got to beat me
other
there,
kids.
right? I mean, did you have a lot of young experience? Like, what was your first time where you kind of went out and you looked at benthic invertebrates? Do you
It
remember?
was
Like,
mainly just so my mom would like always take me out in nature somewhere like to a park, a beach to explore. I never really had like an environmental science class in K through
hmm.
12 at any point. So a lot of my interest was basically from what I've seen on TV and just going out and exploring on my own. So,
That was me too.
yeah.
I was the creek kid. Like I would leave my house, I'd run down to the creek, and then I would, try to find the crayfish,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I
And then
was
my
always
mom would
big
be
on
like,
camping and stuff.
I'd come back all wet. My mom would be like, "You were down at the creek, weren't you?" And I'd be like, "No." Obvious, my shoes are probably all muddy. I'm like completely wet, you know. Uh, but that's what I enjoy doing, hanging out in the stream.
Yeah, I know. Like my mom would. Luckily, she enjoyed going camping, so I always went camping when I was a kid. So I would always be like by the creek, like playing in it. Usually,
Hmm.
I'm an only child, so like by myself. I really enjoyed my time alone. So yeah, it was just kind of a little bit weird, but it
You and
was
I
fun.
have a lot in common. You didn't even know it. So, what are you doing now to describe like your research that you're doing and maybe some of the methods that you're using and what are you kind of looking to find out?
So, as a reminder, I'm interested in how contaminants impact benthic invertebrates. And so, a lot of my focus is on the biology side of environmental science. And currently, I'm looking at the impacts of microplastics as well as PFAS, which is, um, there's really no like layman's way of saying this, but it's a chemical that can be found in like our rugs, stain resistant, water resistant clothing, that's considered harmful at a particular concentration. And so I'm looking at the combined effects of those contaminants on aquatic insects. So that's the gist of my dissertation research. And then on top of that, my interdisciplinary research, which is part of the TRUS program at Wayne State. I'm collaborating with a group to look at green infrastructure and how that can benefit or how we can improve green stormwater infrastructure in the city. And so basically, my role is looking at the microplastic concentrations within that. And then I'm also on another project looking at um, groundwater quality at these green stormwater infrastructure sites within the city. So
That almost sounds like environmental engineering in a
yeah, I'm
way.
collaborating with
Yeah.
engineers. Yeah.
Yep. Because they want to know how to build it to make it work better, and you're there
Mhm.
to inform on the plastics aspect of it, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, so how are you, do you have a method for detecting the microplastics in like the water? Are you looking are you like smashing mayflies to see if they have plastic in them, or are you just kind of scooping up like some mud and looking for plastics? What does that kind of look like?
So, in the first part of my project, I'm just going out in the field and collecting samples, right? So, water and sediment samples, as well as soil samples, and then taking it back to the lab and extracting the plastics from the water and sediments and looking at it under a microscope. So, I'm getting abundance numbers, so the number of microplastics and the shape and type. So, some are like plastic beads versus fibers, so doing those sort of comparisons. And then what I'm doing is I'm taking some of those plastics that I found in the field and exposing them to animals in the lab and seeing things like they're on a biochemical level, like looking at like any changes in their physiology as well as their behavior and how many of the plastics they accumulate based on the different feeding types of those insects. So hopefully that was, I tried to make it as simple as possible.
No, it's good. It's good because it's kind of you have the two-tiered part of it, right? You have the field collection and identification, and then after you find the plastic, then you see how it affects the biology
Right. And
of
so
the
that's
organism.
more of a like applied science approach, sort of taking what you've
Hmm.
learned in the field and sort of applying that to make your laboratory experiments a little bit more realistic or environmentally relevant.
Now, I was curious, do you look at the type of plastic? Like there's type one, it's labeled one, two, three, four. I know some are more dense than others and have different properties. Do you look at that as like, classifying plastics as well?
So I'm not doing that here, but there are studies that do that. So look at they're called polymers. So the different plastic polymers, every plastic has its own chemical makeup. And so what they do is they take it under a microscope and under a special type of microscope. And then that microscope has a plastics library. And so it's able to detect the differences in the plastic polymers or the plastic chemical makeup based on fluorescence or just depending on like what type of machinery they're using. In my case, I'm just looking under a dissecting microscope using a fluorescence filter. And so I expose the plastics to now red, and if they fluoresce under the microscope under a particular wavelength, then you call that a plastic and you count it and you classify it however depending on your classification. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. I think I kind of have an idea of where you're going at. So as a job, I used to extract PCBs from like soil. That was like a lab job I had once. So I was related back to that, and then they would go and, of course, they did PCB research on how it accumulated in fish and different things like that as well. Um, and I know we have had, I'm in upstate New York, and there are a couple communities that have PFAS, like from the fire suppression foam and things like that have gotten into the water supply, and basically the water's undrinkable. And that's where we get into the water sustainability and why this research is important. Not only do we need to be able to drink it, but there are possibly effects through those microplastics on biology as well. Can you kind of tell us a little about the research and what you're thinking we might find, or what we know about, like I've heard about hormonal changes in some organisms based on plastics?
Yeah, so a lot of the current research has been done on plastic beads. And so that's where there was so much controversy around it several years ago in terms of like banning products with those very small beads in them. Um, so what we're finding now is that those plastics can actually leach certain chemicals depending on what they're made up of. And that could potentially have an effect on organisms like fish or invertebrates um, on various aspects. So it could be on an underlying level. So, like, they can cause oxidative stress, causing the organism to exert more energy in order to have basic bodily functions. And then also offspring. So some organisms can have fewer offspring after being exposed to these plastics, as well as other things like deformities in mouth parts and um, life cycles. So some might not emerge because, aquatic insects, they have a larval stage and then they emerge to adults as flies or yeah, just mainly flies. And then, so you can sometimes see some insects have fewer organisms that emerge from the stream as flies. So there's a lot of things that we don't know, but we can sort of it's still relatively new, so we're getting sort of at the surface level of a lot of this. So that's why we need to, that's why more research is being done in terms of on the different types of organisms that are being tested, as well as the endpoint. So what we expect the plastics will, how they will affect the organism.
Mhm. Do we see a bioaccumulation with plastics? I mean, like, because usually it's, the little things eat it, and then the bigger things eat the littler things, and then the even bigger things, and does it accumulate like that?
I think there has been some research done on that. I don't know off the top of my head if it's
Hmm.
been um, definitive or not. I think bioaccumulation is one of those things a little bit more difficult to study, but we do know that they can accumulate a lot in organisms. So, but whether or not it goes up the food chain, I don't know if a lot of research has been done on that. But we can assume so.
Yeah, I mean, even if the plastic itself doesn't, the chemicals sometimes will,
Right.
that are residual from those plastics. What is one of the most interesting things you've found so far?
So far, I'm relatively new in the program, so I haven't gotten that far in terms of the biological aspects of the study. But a part of my field research was looking at the accumulation of these plastics at outfall sites. So the point at which runoff enters our streams. And so what I am finding is obviously there are more plastics accumulating at a lot of these outfall sites. So they're accumulating in our streams. And this tends to be at areas with more concrete, more impervious surfaces. So areas with fewer grasses around. And in terms of my actual, the research that I've done so far on the biotic standpoint is I do see some behavioral differences, particularly in chironomids and midge larvae is what I did most of my research so far with. And we do see a difference, particularly in like burrowing behavior. So yeah, and other studies have also found fewer can emerge after being exposed to microplastics. But the difference in a lot of these studies, and even in mine, is it's very difficult to measure a lot of these chemicals that are actually attached and leaching from these plastics because they're usually in such small concentrations. They might not be detectable by the equipment that we have in the labs.
Now, what's one of the most interesting things that you found that's not directly related to research? Like you've gone out in the woods and like you got attacked by a bear or something. What
Well,
one of those experiences?
so I had a lot of unique field experiences. I would say, but the most interesting though is like going into a stream and like finding, baby doll heads or just
Creepy.
random tools, equipment, because you're like digging around the stream. It's like you don't know what you're gonna get, especially even I would say more so in rural streams, you find the most interesting things. I know I went in the field with somebody, they found a weapon and knives and stuff like that. Like it's a lot. And so that's the fun part of it. I like discovering things. So.
I will say one of the fun parts about field research and being out there is like that unknown, because you think you've seen everything and nothing would surprise you, but then
Yeah.
you get surprised.
And I mean, meeting people in the field is always interesting too, because they just want to know like what you're doing, but then they always have like a story or something to tell you while you're
Yep.
trying to work. But
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. As long as that's all they want to, talk to you about. Said it, get off my property. This is
yeah,
posted. It's like, ugh.
you're always worried about like trespassing, but usually it's okay.
Where have you traveled? Like, I mean, have you like done a lot of research in different places, or is it pretty much just kind of, in just a few select areas?
So I've done, of course, research here in Michigan. I've did a mussel survey in Illinois, so that was pretty fun. And we took like a trip to Missouri to like look for some rare mussel or some rare mollusk, just like a random trip. And then yeah, so and then in Colorado, working in the mountains there, and then I went to Texas, well, I went to Japan before that, then I went to Texas and back here in Michigan. So yeah, that's the fun part about this is you get to travel wherever wherever there's work or research that needs to be done. But
And,
also the conferences, you know.
oh yeah, and I think I tell people that science is a great field if you want to travel, or if you don't. You can do both. So you've kind of been all over the country, and you're not even done yet. You could end up, getting a job, after your degree and going who knows where.
Yeah.
You know,
That's the fun part about this is yeah, you can pretty much go wherever there's a need for research. I know I met someone in Japan. He was actually uh, from Germany, and he was like, "Well, maybe I'll see you somewhere in Africa. We can go catch insects together." I was like, "Okay." I don't know when that'll happen, but I'm down for a
you
trip.
never know.
And yeah, with him, I was just assisting him looking for a particular type of stonefly at waterfalls and at Hime in Japan
Hmm.
prefecture. Yeah, so
There you go. In Japan, looking for stoneflies.
yeah. And then I had to the
Uh-oh, lost connection. Lost connection. She'll be back in just a moment, folks. And we'll hear the riveting story about when she returns. You're back.
sorry.
That's okay. Someone started watching Netflix on your on your
Oh
Wi-Fi. I don't know.
yeah, my Wi-Fi. I don't know. I have like the highest speed. I don't know why it drops, but
Someone turned on a microwave. I had that in my old house. Whenever I went to use the microwave, the Wi-Fi would cut out. It was the weirdest thing.
oh my goodness.
And then finally we moved. I was like, I either have to get a new microwave that's shielded better or Wi-Fi at a slightly different frequency. It was kind of weird. But anyways, you were in Japan. I was gonna mention that my kids love Japan, of course. They love anime, and so we plan on going there. Not this coming summer, but the summer after is the plan. Because by then, hopefully, we'll have enough money, and we'll also have you know, these restrictions on travel would have been lessened
Yeah.
somewhat, hopefully, at that point. Um, so yeah, I was just saying that it's cool when you meet different people, especially science people, and I have found science people generally are really cool because they're just passionate about what they do. I mean,
Mhm.
that's something that you find. Most people are just kind of in science, just you know, they're passionate about their subject and what they're researching, and they just want to help other people find their passion and help them along. Um, I don't know if you can talk to that at all as far as the people you've met, or if they're just all jerks. You could say that too. I mean, if you're like, nope, that's not my experience. That was that one nice guy in Japan. The rest are all asshats.
No, the overwhelming majority of people I met are super nice, super chill. I mean, um, it also might just be the field, like environmental
Yeah.
science, I feel like is a little bit more laid back because we're like also in the field, which is kind of can be a relaxing experience. Maybe you're camping overnight at your field site or something like that. So, but yeah, like I would say everybody's pretty nice.
You
I don't
can't.
really have any.
Yeah, you can't be really high strung and spend a week in the bush, or
Yeah.
you have to be humble when you're waist deep in a swamp.
Yeah. And really like you really have to be passionate to like even stay in this field, and it's sort of geared towards people that's really interested in sort of improving the environment and sort of solving these very complex questions because the environment is very, like, there's a lot of variables to consider, and it's not really as simple as just doing one experiment and getting all the answers that you need. So it takes a lot of effort to solve these issues, and you really have to be persistent, basically, in order to um, sort of solve these very complex questions.
So, complex questions. Let's ask some other complex questions, such as when you're not busy doing research, what is it that you're doing? Just, having fun with your cat, or, we want to put a human side to the amazing research, because sometimes people think that scientists, all they do is just sit around in a lab or in the field talking about science. They're people too. So remind
Yeah.
us.
So in my case, like when I'm not in the lab, when I'm like unplugged from anything science, I don't like my hobbies to be associated with science. So I like to go out with my friends. I took a DJ class, so I like to, practice DJing. I like drawing. I like watching reality TV, like watching all
That's a
that.
guilty pleasure right there, watching reality TV.
I do have a cat. I have a new cat, but she's like stuck under the bed. Like she's still in that new phase, like
Hmm.
trying to get used to the place. So but yeah, I like to I when things were open, I would be at a club like, once or twice a week. So yeah,
There you go. And
I don't know, I guess
you got
I'm
to get
regular.
good enough at being a DJ that when the clubs open back up again, you can be up there with your turntables and
I can't wait. The thing is, like, everything closed down right when I was like ready to like actually use my new skills and get out there. But yeah, so hopefully things open it back up. 2022 maybe.
there you go. There you go. I will say on Twitch, there are a lot of people that actually DJ on Twitch. So, you can't do any DMCA music, but you can mix up your own
Yeah.
stuff. So that is an option if you want to play out. A lot of people will live stream what they do. You have your own dance party in your own living room.
I know. I need to get it set up properly, everything, get the LED lights and
Yeah. See, now you're talking. That's half the fun. See, I enjoy a lot of that stuff. Just the setting it up and all that stuff, getting it to work. The actual music, I got a guitar back there. I don't know if you can see it, so I'll play guitar
Oh
once in a
yeah.
while. But that DJing bit, that's good. It shouldn't be surprising how many people in science have a music side to them. It seems almost everyone has something with music that they do. Have you found that to be the case? I always find that to be kind of the case when I talk to people.
Actually, now that you mention it, yeah, it does seem to be very like the majority of people are like in some sort of band, or I was at one place where the department had their own band. And then
That's hilarious.
and then when I've went to like science conferences, like they would have like jam sessions with the, professors or graduate students would um play. So yeah, I do feel like music is a big part for some reason of what
That does not
I
happen at teacher conferences, I will tell you that. So, see, I found us something. Maybe it happens at like lawyer conferences or something. Someone would have
maybe.
to chime in, but I think that might be a science, thing only. I don't know. But you think of all the, notable scientists, they all always had some kind of music background. At least that's the way I feel. Being classically trained, I guess, would be the old term for it. Um, I don't think DJ was classical training, but it
No.
is it is now. It is now starting the new trends. So I mean, I'm kind of upset that I can't travel right now too. I said can't go to Japan, and I've traveled many places as as part of school and my science background. Um, and I'm glad you've got to travel, and someday you'll travel again. Um,
Hopefully.
hopefully.
Yeah, I'm hoping. I wanted to go to Bali
Mm.
last year, but yeah, maybe in 2022. We'll see.
I mean, the handy thing about your research, there's microplastics everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Unfortunately, unfortunately.
And yeah, I feel like anything related to contaminants in water, you're probably good in terms of job security. Because a lot of these contaminants, they persist in the environment. They're not going anywhere, but at the same time we have to understand like how they behave in the environment, how they move up the food chain, because that ultimately impacts us. So
And I
there'll
think,
always be a job.
yep, and I speak especially now, if anyone's, looking at a science field again too, and I've said this before, water sustainability is big from hydrology, all the way to the toxicology side, because as there's less and less fresh water, more and more communities, you know, between your local community all the way up to the federal government, you know, want to have, people working on this at every level.
Hmm.
Because at a certain point, even with court cases, you'll need experts, in the field. So that'll be important as we go into the future.
Yeah, and that's the good thing about environmental science in general. Is such an interdisciplinary field. No matter what you're interested in terms of other field, maybe you want to go into medical or maybe you want to be a lawyer, you can always link that to environmental science.
Yep. Hey, all the gold. Thanks for stopping in. You're our first chatter. We've been here for like, I don't know, half an hour or so chatting already. And like, uh, I'm back because you sounded so hyped for this interview. I was hyped for this interview, and I'm glad you stopped by. I get hyped for all of them, but I really wanted to get into the microplastic stuff because it's such a good topic right now. So I think it is very important, and I think it's also it kind of epitomizes where we are as people connecting with the world and how we're kind of just screwing it up for the most part.
Yeah.
And it's also, I think, part of the unintended consequences story of some of what we do. So you think about, okay, we have the plastics. Okay, they're so what? They're in the environment. No, there might be problems with that. Um, so, and I think that kind of it's a good story well, it's not a great story as far as we don't want it to happen, but it's good as far as it's easy for people to see now that yeah, there are these little beads, and this is what they're going to do, and we can talk about that. Um, I kind of want to know, and I'm going to look this up. Maybe I have like eighth graders, and I have some like general science high school kids too. Can we just go out to the stream, scoop up some like muck, and then take it back to the classroom, put it under dissecting scopes, and find microplastics? Do you think? About how easy is that to do?
So the majority of the plastics that I find are not visible to the naked eye. So a lot of them are clear, and so you would need some way of detecting it. Most will autofluoresce, and so you can just buy a fluorescence kit for your microscope. That
Hmm.
might help, or you can do what we do in the lab, which is a density separation process where you put salt in the water along with sediment, or depending on if the water is turbid, you put salt in, you create a highly dense salt solution, and so that allows the plastics to float. And so
Ah,
then you can take that extractant, so the water at the top, and filter it and then put it under a microscope and see what you can find that way.
okay. Um, and if you filter the sample, 'cause I'm trying to think, like, I'm thinking about, I got this stuff and I put it in there and I want to do the density thing. Won't like a lot of the sticks and twigs and other muck also go to the top? And then
Right. And So another thing we do in the lab is you can do a organic matter removal by putting hydrogen peroxide, and there's other mixtures of chemicals that you can use as well. But I think hydrogen peroxide is probably the safest. But
Is that what percent hydrogen peroxide is that? Is that like,
so I use 30%. Some people
woo,
use higher. Yeah, it definitely stings if you touch it, but it's better, is more safer than the other options. But you can use that to remove the organic matter. And so I let that sit for um, 7 days at 60 degrees and sort of remove a lot of, it's really for removing the smaller stuff, because a lot of the twigs, they won't show up if you use a fluorescence filter on your
they
microscope.
don't
Like,
float initially anyways.
yeah.
So, okay. That's
But
interesting.
the issue is if you want to see like the smaller particles, you want to really remove a lot of the smaller organic matter so that you're not mistakenly identifying as plastic.
Right. Question from All the Gold here. Are there any naturally occurring plastics?
Naturally occurring, no, because plastics are all man-made, so at least from my knowledge. So there shouldn't be any naturally occurring plastics, if I understand the question correctly.
Yeah, I think that pretty much answers it. Um, it's a polymer based mainly on petroleum, so you'd have to have some special confluence of petroleum being extracted into the environment and then somehow polymerized,
Yeah.
which doesn't happen. I mean, petroleum itself, fruit oil is natural. You know, you have the tar pits, for instance, out in
Mhm.
California. That part can be natural, but then turning that into a plastic,
Yeah, that would be a little bit more
not so
difficult
much. Yeah,
or rare.
rare, right? So yeah, good question, good question. Because that's not something I think that's a good question because it's not necessarily obvious. Because it's like, oh, okay, maybe it could be some forms of natural plastics. And some plastics now are being made out of plant products, um, like more of a collagen.
Oh yeah. So I don't really study like the plant forming or the
Hmm.
chemicals, like how they're produced from natural, like from plants or any other biochemical processes in the nature. But yeah, I'm sure there's some way it could happen. I'm just not sure exactly. I'm not like a geologist or
Right, right. Um, but I do know that, and this is in, like sometimes you'll get like McDonald's, will have something that says we'll have a plastic and it'll be like biodegradable or whatever, or no, it'll say compostable. But that
Mhm.
actually means it can only be composted in a composting facility, not like in your backyard composter, because it has to get up to a certain temperature
Right.
for it to be, composted. You know, good luck trying to find one of those locally. you know.
Yeah, they don't tell you that really. Like you kind of have to come to that conclusion on your own.
Yeah, because I research it, because I'm an environmentally conscious person, and I get questions from students sometimes because they'll ask things like that because you know they're just curious, which is good. And I was like, oh, where can I compost this? Can I just put it in my backyard? No. I'm like, well, where's the near? Let me, because they give you a website too. You try this sometime, and you go there. You're like, okay, whatever compost.com, and they're like, your nearest facility is Atlanta, and you're like,
Yeah.
I'm in New York or whatever. It's like, okay, I'll just recycle it.
Yeah, and it's such like you would think we would have the process of recycling down because the it's been around for a while, like the
Yeah.
idea of recycling, but it's still so difficult. And a lot of people, it's just not accessible to just drive to a recycling plant to recycle if you have just a bag. Like, why would you like to spend that amount of like gas money to just transport such a small amount of things that need to be recycled. It's just not feasible for a lot of people. I know where
Yep.
I live, we don't have recycling because it's an apartment unit. So there's no recycling bins.
And I've also heard, and you might have an idea about this as well, is that as far as like plastics, especially, um, and keeping them out of the environment, it's the idea is you don't want to litter and just throw them on the ground. Putting them in garbage or recycling is better than, of course, just dumping them, because that's how they end up in the oceans and rivers and streams and on the land.
Mhm.
And there's also the school of thought where the plastics originated under the ground, so a good place to put them is back under the ground in a landfill, uh, back from whence they came. That's an environmental argument there. There's
Mhm.
different schools of thought. I don't know if your thoughts were on that, but mainly from what I've heard, it's if like you do, just get it, make sure it doesn't go into the ecosystem. Keep it in a waste stream.
Right. That would be my thought, or that would be like my suggestion, I guess, if I had to choose between the two, because um, just we don't know the impacts of like putting things back underground like that. Like there's a lot of geological processes that could happen. I mean, we could look at fracking as an example of like how we're going underground and sort of disturbing it and what that can cause, what negative
Mm-hmm.
impacts that can cause. So I would just say keep it in the waste stream, just throw it out, or give it to a recycling plant, or put it in the recycling bin or something like that would be my suggestion.
That is my suggestion too. Don't
And
let it
yeah,
get into
don't
the
litter,
ocean.
don't litter, don't dig a hole and try to put it back.
Don't try to put it back. Someone has their own private landfill, but that's where you get, we worry about leachates from landfills, and that's something I'm sure you work with in your, the urban planning piece and everything, where, you got to make sure that if you have a lot of plastic in a landfill, that those chemicals, PFOAS or whatever, don't leach out through into the groundwater and then, contaminate the groundwater system. So is that kind of like when you're doing urban planning, is that a little bit about what you think about?
So, I'm not specifically doing anything like directly related to urban planning. I'm just like collaborating with urban
Right.
planners. But from my experience just going out in the field, and I've sampled near landfill sites before. And so it seems like the way they're doing it is rather efficient. Just the fact that it's out of the way, away from other people, homes, as well as they'll put some sort of park or some sort of green space around it, so that if chemicals were to leach, usually that they would filter through the ground and, well, probably go into our groundwater table, but still, they're not directly impacting um, humans. So that's how they try to mitigate some of those um, harmful impacts from leaching. But it is going to be an issue because our landfills are filling up. And so we have to find more efficient processes of um, getting rid of a lot of those contaminants and plastics instead of, I mean, the other thing, unfortunately, we do is these can end up in other countries um, where they don't have stricter policies in terms of how they deal with landfills. So it's definitely an issue that I don't think, I mean, we know it's there, but finding a solution is kind of difficult because unfortunately, what we produce, it's not going anywhere. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
staying in the environment. It has to go somewhere. So unless we find a way to reuse it.
Yep. Now I switched the our view here a little bit because I want to show you a map just for conversation's sake here. Um, the school I work at is right next to a landfill.
Oh.
So I want to show if I can get the right. There we go. There we go. There's a nice map of. I don't know if you can see that or not, but all right. There's my school, right? And the nice wooded area. See the little pond there? That's nice, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the brown area down there is where the landfill is.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, a lot of residents were not very happy when they decided to put a landfill right next to the school. You can imagine.
Understandable.
You can imagine why. Um,
That's huge. Yeah.
I mean, it is supposedly just a debris, like a construction debris landfill, but even construction debris can have bad stuff in it. So,
Yeah, I mean, another issue in terms of just thinking about contaminants is a lot of our contaminants bind to sediments, and it's sort of like if you ever heard of like towns that get mining towns that get destroyed because they
mhm.
have these tailings, these piles of basically contaminated sediment. And so once you have any wind, any drift, that can definitely cause problems. So I wouldn't say, I mean, I don't know the land, like what it actually is on the ground there, but yeah, it's not that good that a landfill is like right next to where kids can be playing outside.
Yeah, well, that was initial. They've taken some steps recently, um, in the past year to to fix it, but I have a video somewhere. I put it on Twitter when it happened, but there was literally like huge wind came through and like this dust went like flying off of it, and
Oh
it
my
was
goodness.
nasty. It was. I was just like, what the? It was.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, that was
It's
not
right
good.
by the baseball field. It's
Yeah.
yeah, I would definitely try to get that away, but
Yeah. So.
because you can't really control the wind, really. I mean, do they,
mm,
unless they have like like a wall, a brick
Yeah,
wall or
and that's what they ended up doing was that they build a larger berm, earthen berm, and then they every day they had to cap it, when they were done, and those are the only ways they could, mitigate that. Um,
something.
and the other environmental thing, about, when you're looking at urban planning and permits and things, is that the trucks that come into a city, either with the trash or whatever it is that your industry is, that those trucks, are usually diesel trucks. They're not the healthiest things to have around either when you're making, hundreds of deliveries a day and going through certain neighborhoods. So that's not the water issue we're talking about. It's an air issue more.
Mhm.
But it is something to think about, um, since we're talking about the environment. I mean, it is like the environment month, Earth Day's coming up. So,
Yeah, and we also have to remember, like, this is all connected, so, um, what happens in the air can be deposited in
hmm,
our ponds and our lakes, and,
yeah, good point.
um, it's we can sort of think of it as one cycle, basically. Um, the contaminants just travel. That's all it
Yeah,
is, so it's all, it's all important,
yeah.
and, yeah, so yeah, I would definitely, I mean, there's a lot of plastics that can come from cars as well, just the tires, as well as various chemical contaminants can come just from heavy traffic. So,
Yeah. And
yeah, it's definitely not the best situation.
yeah, my other point is, and this has been mentioned before locally, landfill would not have been put next to a suburban school. It's put next to a
Mm.
city school. I'll
Yeah,
leave
I
it at
mean,
that.
that's the other thing is there's a lot of you have to think about the social aspect of it well as well, because there's a lot of environmental justice issues that come along with sort of these environmental problems. Usually it's poor areas or areas with a lot of people of color. Obviously, urban areas tend to suffer as well just because of the population demographic. So it's definitely that's definitely not a good situation, basically. Like I would never advise somebody putting a landfill
No, I
next
don't.
to.
I wouldn't either. I don't know if anyone would advise it, but the problem is you got to put them somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, we as humans produce a lot of trash, unfortunately, and we produce a lot of plastic. And dang, plastics are so handy. Yeah, you can mold them into shapes. You can, they have different hardnesses. You can make them clear. You can make them different colors. I mean, plastics are just handy to have. Uh, but they have their problems, I guess, as you'll be finding out.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, it's relatively new, so there's less a lot of new studies coming out. I usually track all the microplastic studies on Google Scholar, and
Mhm.
there's just a ton that come out every day of just new research looking at not just impacts on the environment directly, so not on the animals or like the fate of it, but also on humans. So yeah, so I guess we'll just we have to just wait and see what more comes out. Hopefully it's not too bad.
Hopefully not, but I don't know. I can't see it being necessarily good. It's either like what level of bad are microplastics, or
Yeah.
it's like it's not like it's gonna be good. It's what level of bad. Is it like really bad? Oh, we need to like dredge everything, or is it just kind of like yeah, okay, it's not too bad. We'll have some frogs with some developmental problems, but that's about it.
Right. Well, there's one saying is the dose makes the poison. So
Hmm.
uh it everything can be bad at a particular concentration or a particular amount that you're exposed to. It's just a matter of reducing people's exposure to it. And that's really the ultimate question is like, how do you reduce people's exposure to microplastics? Because it's not just in the water, it's in the air as well. Obviously, in our soil as well. I actually find more microplastics in soil than I do in stream sediments or in the water column. So,
Hmm.
um, yeah, there's definitely, they're definitely everywhere.
Yeah, well, and there's just going to be more and more of them too.
Hmm.
It's kind of like I think about when you go like metal detecting, I don't know if you've ever done that, right? You get your metal detector and you go out, you look for it. My
Yeah.
brother-in-law did it for a while, right?
Yeah,
And
I was obsessed at
and
one
you
point.
find bottle caps and stuff like that, and it's like you find a few things, um, but most of it's trash.
Mhm.
Um, oh, this is a good question. Nikita Burrows is here, and she asks, "Is glitter a microplastic?"
That is, uh, it is considered a microplastic. It's relatively new in terms of people studying it. So we don't have that much effect or research on it, but it is considered a plastic that we suspect is very harmful.
And it gets everywhere.
Yeah, it's.
Like I'm still
I
finding
do
glitter
not
in
like
my hair
glitter
for
at
when my kids did projects when they were 3. Okay.
all. No, I glitter is like I don't like it at all. It gets everywhere.
It's kind of a good case study as far as like what microplastics can do and how transmission can happen. I mean, a little bit of glitter goes a long way.
Yeah, and some people are concerned about the color as well, like how are animals in the water perceiving that? Is it gonna
Hmm.
be looked at as a food item because of its color, or like I feel like glitter, like there's a lot to look at there with glitter.
Hmm. And I think there was a recent study on glitter, I think. I'm not sure, but I think there was one. I'm like recalling this in my head as I think about news because I go through news every week. And I think there was a glitter study done a few weeks ago. But there, I mean, as you say, microplastic studies, lots of them every day.
Yeah, it's a lot. I try to keep up, but
It's hard. I'm sure. Um, but yeah, I've kind of like I think now, if I was an art teacher or if I was a parent of young children, I think I would shy away from the glitter
oh,
because
definitely.
yeah, it's that is yeah, yeah. Um, oh, can another good question here. Let me see that. Can microplastics absorb metals? Hmm.
So, yeah, so microplastics are unique because they're not just potentially like a chemical contaminant, but they're also a physical contaminant. And a lot of our chemical contaminants, like metals, or as I mentioned before, PFAS or other types of sort of legacy contaminants, can bind or readily bind to sediment particles. And so that's a lot of our research now is also going towards the fact that these contaminants can bind to microplastics. So if you look up sort of chemical associated microplastics or chemicals associated with microplastics, then you can find sort of a lot of stuff looking at a lot of recent research looking at that. So the answer is yes.
Oh, I did a terrible thing,
Uh-oh.
by the way. Okay, as far as microplastics, you know Orbeez, like the magic water balls. Um,
Orbeez?
yeah.
No.
No. Okay. Well, there are the little tiny plastic like spheres. Then you put them in water and they grow. So they're
Oh, I think I've seen that on somewhere on social media.
yeah. So there's a lot of things you can do with them, and I needed some simple experiments to do with my high schoolers. And so we asked questions about Orbeez, and of course they're plastic. And I'm like, after I got them, I'm like, oh my god, that's like I delivered a bag of microplastics to me because they're tiny. You can see here it's about you know they're not
Oh,
as
wow.
tiny as the ones you can't see, but this is only 2 millimeters, right?
Mhm.
And then one of their questions was, well, how big do they get, right? And so, we measured them to see how big they got when they absorbed water. And the interesting thing about these was they only absorbed water. One of the experiments kids did was they put them in um, some alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, and they didn't absorb the alcohol. They're only, absorbing, I think, polar um, liquid. So I don't know. I thought that was interesting, but it reminded me. I'm like, after I ordered them, I'm like, I just got a bag of microplastics. What?
Basically.
Uh,
Yeah, how do you
then I
dispose
felt
of
bad.
that? Like,
I'm like, it's for science, it's for education. It's it. I'll counteract that by later. We'll talk about microplastics. Um, and so yeah, so that was interesting. Um, but I can show you more pictures of that. So if you ever see Orbeez, that's the magic water balls as they're called. Um,
yeah, I think the last time I saw something like that was, I guess, some kid dropped it in his like bathtub or something, then it like
mhm.
went throughout the house. I think that was like um trending at some point on social media. I think it was the same thing as that.
Right. You got you got another good question here. Nikita's got some great questions for you. Where have microplastics been found in the environment? Well, where haven't they been found? I guess would be a better question.
Yeah, so they've been found in our air, our water, soil, everywhere. They're like we cannot escape microplastics. Maybe if you go to a really pristine site, you'll find nothing, but yeah, in urban areas or even suburban areas, you're gonna find microplastics almost everywhere. Do you think it's
Antarctica.
like it's in all of our majority of our products?
Now, is it the type of thing where if I have like I buy a plastic jug of milk, right? Does the plastic from the jug get into the milk? I mean, is that type of thing like small bits of it? Is that a thing or?
So, it probably depends on a lot of different factors, like how not only like the quality of the jug, but like how it was transported. And um, I don't know particularly about milk jugs, but I do know about water bottles where they found plastics inside of them. And um, I forget if that was based on the quality of the bottle as well, because
Mhm.
some are harder plastics than others. But yeah, so it is possible, but whether or not it happens to like all of your food products, I don't know. Probably if
Research,
you heat it up. Yeah.
research. Takes more research. Well, I mean, there are people I know that never reheat food in plastic. They swear they will never reheat food in plastic. Um, my life is, I don't know. I've already done enough chemistry. I'm probably gonna die of cancer anyways. But that's a terrible way to think of the world. But I don't know. I reheat food in plastic. I don't have time to put it into their bowl. Um, but maybe I should. I don't know. Um,
Yeah, definitely. You should try.
I was hoping you would be like, no, it's fine. You can reheat
I mean,
food
it's
in
hard
plastic. That
though.
was leftover Chinese food you got in the fridge. Yeah, just throw it back in the microwave the next day. It's fine.
Well, I mean, it's probably, if you think about it, it's probably too late because most of us are getting takeout food because of, the situation we're in.
Yep.
And so they've already put your hot food in a plastic container, like a to-go box or, even styrofoam. Styrofoam is probably the worst I've seen because those usually, like, as soon as you put something greasy and hot, it starts degrading on your food. So, yeah, but if you can go to glass or something.
Or ceramic. Okay, gotcha. Glass or
Yeah.
ceramic. Okay. All right. I was hoping it'd be different, but okay. Well, remember, it's the concentration or the amount that makes the poison. As
Yeah.
long as I don't do it like every day for the rest of my life, just occasionally, I'll be okay.
Yeah.
Reduce my life expectancy by 1 year or something. I don't know. I'm sure someone's done a study about that.
Hopefully. Hopefully we'll get enough studies where everybody can decide
Yeah.
what to do.
If not, well, someone's listening. They can.
Yeah.
There you go.
The
Yep.
new generation, your students will
Yep.
help
I hope
solve
so.
these problems.
I hope so. That'd be great. Because I don't know. I'm like, you're younger than I am, and I thought that like my generation, the Gen X, we were like environmental like warriors, and that we were going to solve the problems. We're going to save the rainforest and you know plug up the ozone hole, which we did. Uh, but we help make climate change. But it's kind of like I look back and I'm like, oh, man, our generation screwed up so much stuff. There's still mass extinction and climate change and microplastics and oh god. But
Well, we've gotten far. Like we've
okay, I shouldn't be so defeatist then.
yeah.
Okay, so
We
hard
can
on
only
my
do
own.
so much. I mean, these are really complex issues.
True.
And especially when people are involved, like we have to consider human behavior and everything in terms of like how we approach these solutions. But yeah, it's we're getting there slowly but surely.
Yep. And we also had things like acid rain were fixed, which was a real problem, and up until like the 80s,
Mhm.
and then coal power went away, and things got a little bit better. So we are going to switch gears. I have a game that we're going to play.
Okay, I'm
Since this
horrible
is
at
Twitch.
games.
All right. And so, Brittany, you are, an aquatic freshwater researcher, microplastics. But I want to know how much you know about another Brittany, a Brittany involved in as a pop star. So we're going to find out how much you know about Britney Spears.
Nice.
All right. So I got 3 questions about Britney Spears, and you get 2 out of 3 right, and someone on the channel will be gifted a sub. And best of luck to you. I don't know how much you know about Britney Spears, but we're about to find out. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Question 1. Though the world famous Britney Spears, she didn't get there without some rejection. She was rejected when she tried out for something, believe it or not. Which of the following was she originally rejected from? Was it A, from her high school dance team? She was deemed uncoordinated and unattractive by the coach. Was it B, from the all-new Mickey Mouse Club that also featured Christina Aguilera and Ryan Gosling and Justin Timberlake? Or was she C, rejected from working as an entertainer on a Carnival cruise line that they later had someone drop out of, and she did get the spot?
I'm going to say B.
You are right. It is B.
Nice.
So she was originally rejected from the all-new Mickey Mouse Club and that star-studded cast. Doing good so far. You know quite a bit about Brittany there. That's good. All right. Question 2. Brittany's socials have been lit, in case you didn't know. She's very popular on social media right now, keeping her fame alive.
Mm-hmm.
But which of the following garnered questions and laughs? Was it A, a fake video of herself getting jumped to supposedly elicit laughter, and it was so bad that it did? B, she posted that she ran the 100-meter dash in 5.97 seconds, which surprisingly is faster than Usain Bolt did on the world record. Or did she post an oddly sweaty freestyle dance from her home that just kind of went on and on and on and on?
C.
It was actually all 3.
What? What? No way.
Yep. All 3 of those actually happened, right? And, the funny thing was, like, the where she posted she ran 100-meter in 5.97 seconds. When Usain Bolt only ran it in just under 10 seconds, people were kind of like, thanks for being positive and, improving yourself, but we don't think you actually ran it in 5.97 seconds.
Oh my goodness. But the first one though, like her getting jumped, like
Yeah,
I do not.
she did it to kind of get laughs, and I guess she did, but people also just worried for her sanity as well.
Understandable.
I don't know.
So does that count as like 1.5 or like 1.3 or something?
You're good. You're good.
Okay.
So, which of the following is now an actual holiday, an actual event? All right. Is it A, the German holiday Achtung Brittany, in which people Brittany cosplay, play Britney Spears music, and do dance performances to celebrate her October 17th, 2000 Oops, I Did It Again show in Bremen? Is it B, on November 5th, 2014, they celebrated the first ever Las Vegas Brittany Day to celebrate the artist's impact on the city throughout her long-term residency? Brittany Day is now citywide, and it's a yearly attraction. And she also got an official proclamation and a key to the city. But Or was it C? December 2nd is now a holiday in Macomb, Mississippi, where she was born in 1981. Locals have a parade celebrating her philanthropy to the community and her storied career.
That's hard. I'm just going. I are you sure? Is this not like a two?
Only one of these is right,
Okay.
I will tell you. They all sound believable, which is amazing.
Yeah. They are. Since she's from a small town, I'll say C, because I don't think Las Vegas, like, there's a lot of celebrities that come through there. So why would they just do a day for her? So I'm just gonna say C.
It was B.
What?
November 5th is Brittany Day in Las Vegas. So on November 5th, 2014, they presented her with an official proclamation and the key to the Las Vegas Strip. Yep.
I didn't think they would make like a. Does that really constitute a day? Like,
I don't know. They did. It's a holiday now. Brittany Day.
All right. Is there another question?
Nope. You did good.
What? No, like lyrics, nothing. Okay.
No, I didn't do the lyrics. The lyrics are too, at least for me, they're too familiar, I guess.
I mean, I did grow up listening to Britney Spears. I just haven't kept up with her much, as
I think everyone kind of grew up with Britney Spears when she was, in her heyday.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't change a channel without hearing some of her music. So, just the way it was at the time. Let's see here. So you did good. You got 2 out of 3 right. Of course, 1 you had no choice but to get it right. But you did good. And we'll give someone a sub here. Just do it. So we're finishing up our chat here. It is getting late for me. It's almost till 10:30 p.m. right now. And I've been fighting one of those headaches. You ever have one of those headaches that kind of lingers in the back of your head, for the entire day? It's kind of like waiting to jump out and emerge at any point.
Oh my goodness. I actually do not remember what it's like to have a headache.
What?
Remember what it's like to have a headache.
What? Oh my God.
Just drink a lot of tea.
True. I drank so much water today.
Build up your pain tolerance. Maybe that's my thing. Maybe I just built up pain tolerance. I'm having a headache, but I don't know. Who knows?
There you go. There you go. Ben Sign Games. Yes. Love that guy. There you go. You got your gifted sub. Enjoy it. Come back. So I had so much fun today talking to you, Brittany. And I learned a lot. I hope everyone else that's watching will watch later on YouTube will learn something as well. And you're going to be my go-to person for questions about microplastics. That's for sure. And I might hit you up again when I need some ideas for trying to detect microplastics in the environment. So I think that might be a fun project. Even if we just find big ones in class, it's something I think everyone can kind of get into and be familiar with, and have some fun doing it, looking for little microplastics in there.
Right, and in our lab, we've hosted kids before to come and just look at microplastics and see how they're extracted. And there's definitely a lot of resources out there. If you need anything, email me.
Cool.
But I'm glad to talk to you. Hopefully it wasn't too technical at all. Hopefully everything was understandable. But
everything was understandable. I think I used the biggest words when I said benthic invertebrates. That was I'm a nerd. Look at me. that was a big word, sir, tonight. But yeah, very,
And
very good.
ecotoxicology.
One of the things that kids do is, and everyone does it when they read. If they come across a word they don't know, you kind of like skip over it, you
Hmm.
know. And for middle school kids and elementary kids, it's hypothesis, right? They can't say that, and they can't say physicist is a hard one when you're starting off too. And
Mm.
so you're like, all right, let's read this to me, and they'll read everything, and they get the word hypothesis, so they skip over it. And you're like, no, you can't skip over that. You have to say the word. So like me reading it, I'm like, ecotoxicological.
Yeah, just
Sound
keep
out,
trying eventually.
sound out every phonetic piece.
Yeah. I will say it's very relatable. Like I had issues like trying to pronounce words. Even as an adult, I have issues trying to pronounce words.
It
Like,
gets worse as you get older, I think.
yeah, so never give up. Just keep trying to repeat it and eventually it'll click.
Fun. So I just want to give a shout out for next week. I have Professor Matt Bellis coming back, and he has a game called Quantum Party, which is about quantum physics. So we're going to go completely to the other end of science in a way. Well, we're going from microplastics to micro particles, I guess. And we're going to talk about recent stuff in the physics world that have kind of exploded as well. So that'll be fun. That'll be next Wednesday, same time, same channel. And Brittany, maybe we'll have you back sometime if you're willing to come back and chat.
Yeah, anytime.
Especially after you get your PhD, then you'll be like all like, you know,
Yeah.
famous and excited, and maybe you'll be moving on to something else exciting.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, anytime. I'm down to come and chat about anything.
yep. And
Maybe
everyone,
brainstorm this landfill by the school situation.
yep. And please, everyone, give her a follow on Twitter. She is very active tweeter. Um, so you like the stuff
Not
she posts.
yeah. Not all science, but
Not all science. That's okay. I like it when it's not all science. Um, that's fine. Like I said, scientists are human beings as well and have other passions
exactly.
besides just looking at microplastics. You know, just like, kids have trouble with their teachers. They see you in the store and they're like, oh my God, you're at a store. Yes. Of course, we were the same way when we were kids too. You thought your teacher lived in the classroom. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't imagine
Teachers,
them.
like I've had professors that I've met out like wow, you actually go out and have fun. That's weird, but good.
Funny. Funny, funny. All right. We are going to raid someone tonight. So we're going to go visit someone else's channel. And someone I've been meaning to visit that I haven't been able to recently is Science Ninja Gal. She's doing Minecraft, and I believe she does Minecraft in education, which is something I've been into and I've done before. So we're going to go visit her. So please stick around because that's really cool if you've never done Minecraft in education before or looked into that. If you're a teacher, even at a higher level of teaching at college, you can still use Minecraft to help teach. Yes, you can. It's a thing. So let's go find her really quick. There we go. And she'll be thrilled because I don't even think there's anyone on her channel right now. So
when you're first setting up a world. So our denied ones, the grey ones here, mean that.
and okay. And the next stream I actually have is on Friday. We will be doing more. We've been playing Subnautica, so check out more of Subnautica. So,
The status week is very much
all right, awesome. I just had to make sure she was still there and streaming before I decide to rate her. So, everybody, thank you for being here. Please, if you missed any part of this, it'll be up on YouTube very soon on my channel, and I will see you very soon, I hope. Bye.
build on, then these deny blocks is what you want to use. Hi, Science Streams.